Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. She's out and about today. We're going to talk about the comic book industry because she does not care much about the mainstream comic book industry. We're going to talk about WEBTOON. We're going to talk about all the changes going on in the comic book industry. Like, everything is kind of imploding, isn't it? We've been covering the impending collapse of the niche tabletop board game industry. In fact, yesterday, I think I put a video about Come On, deciding that they're going to stop producing new games. They're laying a bunch of people off in anticipation of problems because of the tariffs. They're saying because of the tariffs. Other people said they were having problems before that. We've had numerous tabletop game publishers decide they're just going to shutter, including some shops. They're just going to close down because of tariffs like 2 weeks into it. And I'm going to talk about the comic book side of things, of the geekosphere. I actually put a podcast up on Clownfish Minus, kind of expanding on my thoughts about, all this stuff ending at once, right? It's all kind of collapsing at once. And I think all these publishers are trying to scramble to stay relevant. And now we've got IDW putting its comics on WEBTOON. I mean, DC did it before, but then they turned around and they took the Batman family material. They turned around, they took that, and then they published it. And actually, my understanding is it sold pretty well. I think it sold fairly well. But it just seems like they're trying very, very hard to just stay alive. And this is, well, IDW is trying really hard to stay alive because they're like on the verge of death. But we're going to talk about the Diamond deal falling through. And apparently they have a backup, but it's not looking good. Because here's the thing. Like, most comic shops, from my point of view, and this is coming from a guy who actually has a retail location that I am seriously considering we may not renew the lease on, because why the hell bother? Most comic shops are basically like Diamond franchisees, right? So they're being propped up. In some cases, Diamond will float you a line of credit. They order almost all their stuff from Diamond. And with Diamond being gone or up in the air, like it looks very uncertain. Now, the smarter shops have pivoted into other things. They're maybe selling, I don't know, collectibles and vintage video games and tabletop. Well, that's going poof, except for Magic. I guess Magic is okay because they print those cards in the US, but like, everything is just in an utter state of chaos right now. And you're going to see a lot of stories like this. We're going to see in the next couple of months the long tail. We're going to see more shops close. We're going to see more publishers close because Diamond owes publishers a lot of money. And it's just, everything is going to kind of collapse. And I think it'll be rebuilt, but it's going to be rebuilt more, I believe, as a direct-to-consumer model, because there's not going to be any margins there for a middleman, and there's not going to be any incentive for anybody to become a middleman, because there's not a lot of money in this stuff to begin with. Not anymore. Not like there used to be, because a lot of it's not selling. The new stuff is not selling like it used to. Where the money is in having collectibles and things that people will pay top dollar for. And a lot of shops, again, are surviving on back issues, high-end collectibles. Like, we're talking, multi-$100 statues and crazy stuff like that. Vintage merchandise, vintage, video games. Some of them are selling vinyl records, whatever they can sell. It's almost become like a freaking flea market, right? I walk into some comic shops now and I'm like, it doesn't feel like the comic shops of the late 80s, early 90s, where front and center were new comics. Like, you would walk into the comic shop, and in my hometown, we had 4 comic shops in the late 80s and early 90s. And you would walk into that shop and boom, as soon as you walked in the door, there was a massive shelf with all the new releases, because that's what everybody was there for. They were there to pick up the new comics, that week's new comics. And then the back issues were literally in the back, and all the other tchotchkes and stuff, they were kind of spread throughout the store. But like, everybody that went to that store was going there for new comics. That is not the case now. In fact, there's one shop I go to where the new comics are on a shelf, like in the the back of the store, in the front of the house, are the back issues and the high-end collectibles and the games. And I remember back in the day, the shops I went to, most of them, yeah, they had tabletop games, but it wasn't their bread and butter. It wasn't everything that they did. And now they're depending on it to survive. And friggin' Funko Pops, and Funko's not in a good place. So let's talk about this before we get into it. I've gotten into it pretty far. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Hey, we're going to be doing another print run of, speaking of direct-to-consumer, of the Crimson Wren hardcover graphic novel. This has actually been sold out for a couple of years. People are asking about. We're going to do another print run ahead of launching Crimson Wren 2, which is going to launch sometime this fall after we get Shadowbinders 3 out, which was delayed for reasons, multiple reasons. And that all these books are going to be printed with a U.S. printer because of the pandemic and the tariff situation. And it just makes a lot more sense. I'd like to be able to drive to the printer and get my books, if need be. We have to pay more per book, which means the margins aren't there to kick everything over to a distributor, but it doesn't matter anymore. But if you want to sign up to be notified, probably about a week or two, we'll launch this. We're going to relaunch Crimson Wren 1 with this version of the book. Some of the add-ons include tabletop RPG cards, some of the characters, and we're doing some other stuff with it. So even if you have the book, I think we're going to have a tier in there that you can just buy the stuff if you just want to buy the extra stuff, because it's essentially going to be the same book. So, but a lot of people have been asking for it. We didn't really do that big of a print run because the pandemic, the prices went up. It was crazy. So anyway, let's talk about this. Check it out on BackerKit. Thank you very much for the support. By the way, if you guys supported the Shadowbinders pins, they were all the ones I could send out were sent out last week, but there are like 10 people that need to turn their surveys in. So please turn your survey in. If you did not do that, you don't get anything if I don't know where to ship it. So anyway, let's go out to this. So we're going to talk about Alliance Entertainment canceling its purchase of Diamond. So Alliance was going to buy them. And these people didn't have, as my understanding is currently, they didn't have much of a grasp of the economics of the comic book industry. And they thought like a $5 comic was too cheap. I'm like, no, a $5 comic is way too much for 32 pages. It's way too much money. That's part of the reason that comics are in decline now. Alliance cancels its purchase of Diamond. So Alliance Entertainment canceled its purchase of Diamond comic distribution, according to Bleeding Cool, or Universal Distribution ad populum now Diamond's owners. Okay, so Alliance Entertainment cancels its bid to acquire Diamond via Chapter 11 auction. And for those of you who don't know, Diamond basically ran the comic book industry for decades, and they filed for Chapter 11. It was either the end of last year or beginning of this year, and they're being sold off for parts, basically. And they owe a lot of publishers a lot of money. They owe a lot of money. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Good luck getting that money, by the way. SEC filings reveal details of Alliance Entertainment's sudden withdrawal from the purchase agreement. I think they looked into it and they're like, yeah, Diamond's not worth it. This is not, this business model is not worth it. We're not gonna be able to make money off of this. Like basically your business is selling books to a dwindling number of comic book specialty shops and hoping that they'll pay you someday. It's like that just doesn't work. Bankruptcy process faced legal disputes with Universal and ad populum's backup bid reconsider. So Universal might wind up with it. That's what I've heard. Alliance Entertainment has issued an SEC filing as a notice of termination over their agreement won in Chapter 11 bankruptcy auction to buy Diamond. Filing states that on April 25th, Thomas Fink advised the board of directors of Alliance Holding Company that he is resigning as director of the company, effective on May 1st. Is it relevant? I don't know. It goes on to say on April 24th, the company sent a notice of termination to Diamond Comic Distributors, Inc., terminating the previously executed asset purchase agreement to acquire substantially all the assets of Diamond through a court-supervised bankruptcy process. Termination was effective immediately. Wow. Bruce Ogilvie, who's the boss, I guess, declined to comment or clarify when approached by Bleeding Cool earlier today. Currently, this also means that Universal Distribution and Ad Populum should be the new owners of Diamond. Basic Fun was the third highest bidder. So Basic Fun wanted to buy Diamond. Here's the thing. if a company like Basic Fun, which does mostly toys, and they're the ones that like Hasbro has licensed a lot of its vintage line to, like they do the My Little Ponies and they do like the Play School stuff, and they actually do a pretty good job. But they're a toy company. I don't think they're going to care about carrying your indie comic book to the 1,000 comic book shops or whatever that are left. Do you? I don't think they're going to. I think that they would basically take it. Whoever's going to buy it, do not expect Diamond to look the same on the other side. I don't know if they're interested in books. I think they might be interested in the infrastructure and getting their merchandise into more shops or bookstores or whatever. Because, you know, it's kind of like Elon Musk buying Twitter. Like, it's got good bones. You buy it and then you turn it into what you want it to be based off the framework. I think that's potentially what could happen. I think somebody could come in and be like, yeah, we don't want to be a comic book distributor. There's no money in being a comic book distributor. We're going to strip this thing down and use it to distribute our toys or whatever else that we're trying to do. So there's a whole timeline here. And now this is the update. Why did Alliance change its mind? Okay, I would like to know. I'd like to know. Alliance terminated its agreement. It's agreed in one purchase of Diamond Comic Distributors, according to Bleeding Cool, under Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and based on court documents, there are only a few reasons it would be allowed. To recap, yeah, they talk about termination purchase was revealed in the SEC filing. They sent a notice of termination. Per court documents, the agreement may be terminated under limited provisions by mutual written consent of purchaser and seller. But they did it solo. By purchaser in the event of the closing not occurring. Court documents strongly imply the closing cannot occur. Okay. By seller in the event of the closing not occurring, but was not Diamond who terminated the sale. By purchaser, seller shall file a motion to sell all or part of the acquired assets to a third party other than the purchaser. No motion was filed. So they're not selling off parts of it, if I understand that correctly, to somebody else, and then they're not getting the whole thing that they agreed to buy. Purchaser, by purchaser, if any term of the approval order is not reasonably accepted to purchaser in any manner that is materially adverse to purchaser. Okay, so the reasons have to be restricted. Before the auction, they were given full access to Diamond's accounts under an NDA, so they knew exactly what they're bidding on. Okay, Diamond would have had to have sold substantial assets after the auction. Okay, so Diamond may have breached the agreement, or there was a problem with the approval order. Just personal opinion. Diamond is not really upfront with their numbers. And Diamond's kind of a shady business. And it would not surprise me if there was something going on behind the scenes. He's gotten a deal, or he's, you know what I'm saying? I could totally see that happening. The approval order role is approving the sale of the acquired assets to purchaser, free and clear of all liens and claims. Lien means a right to keep possession of property belonging to another person until debt owed by that person is discharged. So do they have a lien on Diamond? Did Diamond borrow a bunch of money to stay afloat? And then the creditor actually has, or it could be a tax lien too. It could be Diamond hasn't paid their taxes in 5 years, 10 years, and they still owe the IRS a bunch of money. I mean, that's possible too. The Unsecured Creditors Committee, representing those owed money by Diamond but without security to back it up, has filed paperwork with the courts extending the challenge procedure regarding alleged liens, security interests, and other claims and encumbrances. It's perhaps notable that the Unsecured Creditors Committee challenge period was initially set to end on the 25th of April, yada, yada. Titan Comics, the comic book publisher's representative on the Unsecured Creditors Committee, has also launched paperwork by itself regarding its contract with Diamond and the comic books that Diamond has in its warehouse being sold as assets as part of the bankruptcy deal. Interesting. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Has there been an update on this? I don't think anybody knows really what's going on. Like, there's obviously something going on. It sounds like there's a backdoor deal or whatever. So that is kind of part one. Part two, and there's a lot. I just have a lot of random thoughts here about the comic book industry, because standalone comic book videos don't perform. And the reason they don't perform is the general public is not interested in comic books like they were even 5 or 6 years ago. The industry is in such a state right now that it takes a lot to get people excited about comics. And I think the pandemic actually did a lot of damage. I think a lot of people, even if the comics are better now, and objectively, some of the comics coming out do seem like they're better than they were 5 or 6 years ago, people aren't buying them not in the numbers that they need to buy them to keep things chugging along. It's basically, it's too little, too late. And yeah, you may have one or two big hits here and there, but then for every hit you have like 20 misfires. And I'm not talking creatively, I'm talking financially. We don't even know how many comic books are being sold every month. We have no idea. You have to go by comic shop point of sale data, but the 100 shops or whatever that they're, okay, this is a small non-random sample, 3,000 stores selling American comics worldwide. So there's only like 1,000 comic shops in the US, like 1,200 comic shops. And some of those I would barely qualify as a comic shop. It's basically, they sell new comics. They sell new graphic novels. But they also sell a bunch of pop culture tchotchkes. There's a place in the one mall near us that it's basically, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's just like a dumpster full of like pop culture stuff. And they sell everything from Japanese candy to board games to vintage toys to lots of plushies and cannabis related merchandise. And they have a small section of new comics that they get, every month. And I don't even know if they have pull lists or anything like that, but they carry comics because they carry everything else. It's nerd. It's kind of like a locally owned Hot Topic, I guess. And, they would probably consider that a comic shop. Rich Johnson was considering comic shops as people that were opening flea vendor stalls that just happened to sell comics. Right. So, I mean, how many actual, I want to know how many actual just comic book shops do we have left? And I'm going to say very, very few, because I was talking before, when I grew up, we had four in our town. And if one shop didn't have X-Force #1, then I'd go to the other shop. If they didn't have it, I'd go to the other shop. It wasn't hard. I could walk to all, because they were, relatively close to each other. I don't think my old hometown has any comic shops left. I think it's all done. They all went the way of the arcade. It's all gone. We don't even know what's being sold. But it's really interesting to see these publishers trying to pivot. I've seen more and more publishers rely on crowdfunding. I mean, you've got Dynamite and Boom doing crowdfunders now. You've got IDW putting their stuff on WEBTOON. I mean, it's just like everything is changing, and it's changing very fast. Gotta go fast. Actually, this is pretty cool. I might check this out. They reformatted everything for WEBTOON, but yeah, they're giving it away. And I think they're giving it away hoping you'll buy back issues of Sonic, but I have to wonder if this license isn't going to be up pretty damn soon, because they're losing all their other licenses and nobody's really buying anything from IDW. What happened to their Christian books? Remember Heather Antos was going to do Christian comics? Whatever happened to that? Did they ever do that? I don't know. I don't think most of these publishers know what they're going to do month to month. I think everything is in a state of chaos right now. So your best bet as a comic creator is just go make your own stuff and sell it directly to consumers, because I don't know what's going to happen. I think everything is just up in the air at this point. So I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.